Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Jill Norcross. I'm the Executive Director of the Northern Virginia Affordable Housing Alliance, here with my colleague Hannah Matuda and our special guests for today's Lunch and Learn, which since it's summer, we thought we'd try to do something fun. And we are welcoming you to our virtual bus tour of recently opened affordable housing communities in Northern Virginia. Just so you know, we're recording this session and we're going to make it available to everyone who registered, and it'll also be on our website. So we're really thrilled to have you. We hope this session will help demystify what new affordable housing looks like in our communities and how well properties integrate into our existing neighborhoods. We want to share with you what today's affordable housing looks and feels like. It really truly does look like a market rate product, except for the complex financing. You really would not know these are affordable homes. And these properties are the result of some intentional and multi-layered partnerships that have involved our development partners, local governments, state and federal agencies, and some other partners as well that you'll learn about. So whether they're through redevelopment or new construction, so many of these properties feature green building design elements and are often able to both mitigate existing environmental concerns like stormwater management while providing additional smart growth principles, proximity to transit, and equitable access to amenities like free Wi-Fi for all the residents. So today we're grateful to have Dave Johnson of Wesley Housing Development Corporation speak about the Waypoint Apartments in the city of Alexandria, Kelly Renaud of Habitat DC Nova to speak about their affordable homeownership project at Groveton Street in Fairfax County, and finally Mitch Crispell at the APA and Ben Miller of Wellington Development to speak about Loudoun View Senior Residence in Loudoun County. So welcome all. So these are just 3 examples of affordable housing that we've opened in Northern Virginia in the past 12 months. Navaja's blog this month highlighted a lot of the other examples of newly opened affordable housing. I think Hannah's going to put that in the chat if you haven't seen that. So those properties were developed with our partners here who are speaking today, along with AHC, SCG Development, Enterprise Community Development with Fellowship Square, Penrose, and Community Housing Partners. So that has contributed a total of 1,328 affordable units toward meeting our regional housing goals. So after each stop on our virtual road tour, we're going to open it up for questions from you all from the audience for about 5 minutes, and then we'll move along to our next stop. At the end of all the tours, we'll hopefully have time for additional questions. We're going to ask that you either put those questions in the chat or use the raised hand feature since there's so many of us on the call, and we'll kind of ask you to come off mute. So welcome. We're thrilled again to have you all. Thank you for your interest, and want to now turn it over to our first stop on the virtual bus tour with Dave Johnson of Wesley Housing to talk about the Waypoint Apartments. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Jill. So yeah, like Jill said, I'm with Wesley Housing. I'm a project manager there, and I was responsible for the Waypoint. But it's important to note there were several project managers involved at the Waypoint. So many of you probably know Paul Brown. He was the first one to respond to the RFP from Fairlington Presbyterian Church. Then Judith Cabelli, who's now the vice president of real estate at Wesley. She was a project manager here. My predecessor, Alex Pereira, worked on this. And then I joined Wesley when this was about halfway through construction in February of 2022. So a little bit about Wesley. Many of you know us already, but we were founded in 1974, and our mission is to build up the lives of our region's most vulnerable residents. We really believe, and data supports the fact that stable and safe housing underpins people's success in every other area of life. Our footprint is mostly in Northern Virginia. We have a couple properties in DC. You can see the orange ones are under development. So we have roughly 2,800 units which house around 4,000 low-income individuals. The Waypoint is in the city of Alexandria. We are right off 395, really close to major bus routes and the Bradley Shopping Center, so a lot of employment opportunities nearby. For me, my most important landmark was Duck Donuts. I think that's the best donuts in DC, but open to other ideas. Always want to check out new places. Everybody loves a good before and after shot. So this was the parking lot of Fairlington Presbyterian, which you can see there on the left behind the trees. This was taken on Google Street View in 2016, which is when they put out the RFP. And then this is that same parking lot in December of 2022 when we finished construction. Credit to our general contractor Harkins, who took this photo, and actually most of the photos in the slideshow. So some of the details about the Waypoint were, this is an 81 unit LIHTC building. We did 9% low income housing tax credits for this. I'll get a little bit more into the size and the AMI levels in a later slide. We purchased a 50,000 square foot lot adjacent to the church. And we, along with the church, pursued a rezoning through the development special use permit process with the city of Alexandria to get it zoned for multifamily. We have 4 stories of stick build over 1 level of concrete parking underneath or below ground. And then the city required that we had at least one parking spot per unit. So we ended up with 83 parking spaces. And we moved the church's parking lot to another part of the site. They have 61 spaces. And I'll talk a little bit more about our common rooms, et cetera, later on. So unfortunately, I don't have a drone shot of the post-construction. So the rendering is still our best way to see where the Waypoint on the left sits in relation to Fairlington Presbyterian Church. So the Waypoint is where the parking lot used to be. There was also a playground that we relocated that was part of the first phase of construction. Now it's closer to King Street here. And then the Bradley Shopping Center is right down the street. This is our site plan. You can see this shared parking area. This is the line that divides our property. So we bought, and now Wesley owns outright all of this land on the left, the 50,000 square feet, and the church retained ownership of the section on the right. And this is their footprint here. So a couple more shots of the completed building. This is a photo of some of our residents enjoying our summer day camp, which was just a few weeks ago. I'll talk a little bit more about our resident services shortly. Our project team was ourselves, of course, as developer. We had Hefner Architects and Walter Phillips as the civil, and then Harkins Builders was the GC. A big part of why Fairlington Presbyterian chose us through the RFP process was that we own and operate our buildings. We don't sell when we're done with the development process. So Wesley Property Management operated Waypoint from day one, and of course is still there. And then I'll talk a little bit more about our stomping ground, who was a partner and remains a partner in making sure that people there's a preference for people with developmental disabilities into 9 of the units at the Waypoint. So I'm not going to get into all the detail here, but I will talk about a takeaway from the community engagement process. The Waypoint began from Wesley Housing standpoint in 2016 when we responded to an RFP from Fairlington Presbyterian. But in speaking with Jill about this event, she actually told me that Fairlington hired her in a previous position to lead them through the process of discerning how they wanted to develop that parking lot. So Fairlington Presbyterian sat in on some of the meetings with Arlington Presbyterian, who worked with APA on Gilliam Place. And they started thinking about what they would want to do with their parking lot. So Jill told me there was conversations with Habitat actually about a for sale home ownership product, but they ultimately decided they wanted to do highest and best use to maximize the density. And that's why they chose Wesley to develop the 81 units of affordable housing. So Fairlington Presbyterian and Wesley, we were really true partners. We have parallel missions in terms of reaching underserved populations. And we jointly pursued the rezoning with the city of Alexandria. Julie Wilson Black, the pastor of Fairlington, was at all the meetings. And it was actually her idea, according to Jill, to engage the community in a roundtable style. So I think this is a big takeaway, or was a big takeaway for Wesley, and hopefully for the group here. We all know that NIMBYism is strong. It's hard to get projects approved, especially affordable housing projects. And the pastor, Julie, had the idea, instead of it being a format where the developers present to the audience and that can turn south in sort of an us versus them format, she said, well, why don't we bring in all the experts? And you can see on this slide here in various tables. So people, the community, we invite them in and they'll have their specific concerns resolved on the spot in several smaller conversations. So if a neighbor had a concern about the schools, we had a representative from Alexandria City Schools there. If they had architectural concerns, they could go speak to the architect. And this is a format that we continue to use to avoid some of the pitfalls of community engagement when you're trying to get a project approved or to gain support from your constituents and community. But we had 13 meetings across 18 months, which culminated in our zoning approval in 2018. Importantly, we had a gap loan from the city of Alexandria as well in 2018, which allowed us to apply for 9% LIHTC financing in 2019. And then we got a VHTF loan in 2020. This is a slightly more condensed version of our timeline. Zoning approval, site plan approval. There was 2 phases of the construction. We relocated that church playground and some utility work, and then the Waypoint started construction in December of 2020 and finished in October 2022. I talked a little bit about our financing, but yeah, we have 9% tax credits, a first mortgage, Freddie Mac loan through Capital One, this gap loan from the city of Alexandria, and then the VHTF funds. And I'm happy to speak more about financing, just trying to stay under 10 minutes here. I spoke about the partnership with our stomping ground. So we have 100% universal design units and 9 fully accessible. But universal design, as many of you know, means that you can easily adapt units to people who have specific needs later on. This means we have really large units, and there are things like large corridors, really large turning radius for people in wheelchairs. And then the amenities, we also have very large, I'll show you some photos of our large on-site amenities, free Wi-Fi. And then the unit mix is 60% down to 30% AMI. I always find it helpful to see what that actually translates to in terms of income limits. So if you're a 1-person household today in 2023, your income could not exceed $63,300 if you were going to take one of these 37 60% AMI units. So sadly, I don't actually have any photos of like the kitchens, or I asked everybody, and we filled this building up so quickly that we didn't ever pay a professional photographer to go in and take photos of the units. This is the best I have. But you can tell from this photo how big they are. They're very spacious for not just affordable housing, but for any housing, period. And I'll show you some floor plans quickly at the end. So a big part of Wesley's mission is building up the lives, like I said, of our residents, and that includes resident services. So we have a full-time resident services person at the Waypoint, and here are some photos. This is also from that summer day camp, and then on the right is some food distribution. These are various programs that are available to our residents, everything from job training to nutrition classes, to make sure that people are not just living in safe housing, but they have opportunities to advance their lives. And that actually speaks to the name, the Waypoint. Fairleigh Presbyterian and Wesley jointly came up with that name as sort of a beacon or a landing place for people to advance to prosperity. So I just hit 10 minutes. I'm going to slide through some photos. This is our community room. I love floor plans, so I wanted to show these off. Really large units. And that pretty much wraps it up.
That's excellent. Thank you so much, Dave, for that great overview. I'm going to open it up for questions. You all can raise your hand or put the put your question in the chat, excuse me. So I'll give you a second to go ahead and do that. And while you're thinking of your questions, I'll just comment on a couple of things Dave said, because as he mentioned, I really had the wonderful opportunity to kind of work on the early stages of this project with the church. And I do appreciate your comments around the community engagement format, which I think really did yield a lot more positive results in the end in trying to target people's individual questions and concerns and not just, have the traditional back and forth. people upset with the development community working on this. So another thing, Dave, maybe you can talk a little bit about, you mentioned the unit sizes, and that's something that I really appreciated seeing after it was developed, and just, Wesley's intentionality around trying to create family size units, and even the larger sizes with universal design. I'm curious if you learned or remember how you kind of came across, wanted to make sure you were meeting those needs, which are often harder to do and more expensive to do, creating bigger unit sizes.
Yeah, the honest answer is I don't know too much about the background there. Judith Cabelli was really insistent on having like truly family-sized units. And there was a conversation as part of the rezoning about, yeah, I have to go back to the DSUP process with Alexandria, but there was talk of making sure the units were sizable. They wanted to not, max out the site, but actually have 81 reasonably sized units, as opposed to trying to reach for more density. And it aligns, like you said, with Wesley's mission of making sure we're not just putting people in housing, but it's safe, stable housing that works for the long term.
That's great. Thank you. We had a question in the chat about examples of recent rent prices. So I don't know if you have the rental prices available, especially for those who qualify for the 30% AMI units. I know you mentioned at least pretty quickly, as so often happens with affordable units, but if you
I can pull it up on Novogradac really quick.
Okay.
And I'll share my screen in a second.
Okay.
We can do another question and come back to that.
Yeah, there's another question in the chat about how the church came to the decision to use part of the property for affordable housing. Other churches,
you should answer that one.
Okay, other churches having a lot of land, but may or may not, probably not considering that. Yeah, I'll just say, having worked on that project and with Arlington Presbyterian Church, which did a similar affordable housing development in along Columbia Pike with APA. I think it really just kind of came out of, unfortunately, probably the, realization of there's been declining enrollment in some of the churches, and maybe a need for either additional fundings to make improvements to the building. What Arlington Presbyterian Church ended up doing actually is deciding that they didn't really necessarily want a building at all. At the end of the day, they came back in as like a tenant. They rent some of the first floor, ground floor retail space. They rent a retail bay and hold church there, and hold church in a neighboring garden that they owned. They actually bought back from APA to kind of give back to the community as open space. So sometimes it's an economic decision that kind of leads a church down this path. And then I think the mission alignment of trying to be good neighbors and good stewards of their resource and do something that lives beyond the church's legacy to give back to the neighborhood is, I think, a consideration. So we do continue to see a lot of faith communities discern whether this makes the most sense for them. I think there are more and more projects coming online. I know Wesley is currently working with First Christian Church in Fairfax County, in I guess that's the Seven Corners kind of area. So yeah, more to come. And I think our local governments are trying to do more outreach as well. And some of the intermediaries like Enterprise, trying to work with faith communities to kind of give them the tools and resources to help that.
Really quickly share my
Sure.
screen so we can see the rents. Let me see. So this shows in 2023, the rent limits for these various AMI levels. Of course, it depends on the bedroom size. And then I don't know why it's showing me 60% twice, but 60, 50, and 30 is what we have at the Waypoint. So our rent maxes would actually be slightly lower because we leased up in 2022. So if we were to open today, these would be the limits on rents. And if you want to find this, you can go to Novogradac's website.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think just to highlight, a 3-bedroom apartment for $1,100, maybe, is just unheard of in this, region. So it really does speak. Again, there are so many people in need, and we really do find it more challenging to provide housing for individuals earning that 30% and below. And then of course that 30 to 50% AMI can also be challenging because it lands outside of some of the federal resources. So one more question and then we'll kind of move on to the next step, but how was the decision made to use the RFP process? I will just say that the church, I think got approached by a couple different developers about ideas of what they could do with the land. When word got out, they were looking at it. And I think a formal RFP process where they were seeking the same information from each potential development partner just seemed to be the best way to go so they could evaluate it strategically, interview the different development partner candidates. And I think at the end of the day, like Dave mentioned, it was a decision to kind of maximize the number of units on the property that kind of led to the partnership with Wesley. So thank you so much again, Dave, for that great tour. We're gonna kind of move further south along. If you're coming from the city of Alexandria, we're gonna go south into Fairfax County and turn it over to Habitat DC Nova and Kelly Renaud, and something that is very rare and I think even harder to do in the Northern Virginia region, develop affordable homeownership opportunities. So thank you, Kelly. I appreciate you being here.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for having us. It's really cool to see what ended up coming of that last project. I do remember conversations about that a while ago, but it's nice to see what's come of it. So that's really been great. So I wanted to show you guys a little bit about our Groveton Street homes that we are working on currently in South Alexandria. Let's see, so I'm Kelly Renaud. I'll introduce myself to start first. I'm the director of construction for all of the ongoing construction activities on the Northern Virginia side of our affiliate. So in February of 2022, Habitat for Humanity of Northern Virginia merged with Habitat DC to become Habitat DC Nova. So in Virginia, we have a construction team working on the homes I'm going to show you. And we also have a construction team in DC working on a lot of great projects there. So since that merger, we've been really able to combine our sources and ultimately with a goal to create a greater impact in our region. So many of you are familiar with Habitat for Humanity, but although Habitat is probably one of the most recognized organizations, it can also be one of the most misunderstood organizations. So I wanted to take a second to talk about our organization and show you one of our ongoing builds. And then I'm going to circle around a little bit to talk about funding and how we use resources to make our program possible. You're going to get a little bit more of the construction aspect of it. I was hoping to have Mike Spatz on here, but I'm including some more contact information at the end of this so we can reach out to anyone else that we need to. Let's see. So our affiliate covers the regions of Washington, D.C. now, Arlington, Fairfax County, and then all of the jurisdictions within, so also Falls Church, City of Fairfax. Our affiliate operates under the umbrella of Habitat for Humanity International, but we are our own independent organization with a separate 501c3. Our organization's goal is to create affordable homeownership in our region. So in order to qualify for a Habitat DC Nova home, you must make between 30 and 80% of the area median income. You have to have a good credit history. You have to be a first-time home buyer, and we want you to have lived in our region for more than a year. So our families also partner with us, and what the partnership looks like is contributing 200 hours volunteering on site with us. Our homeowners also will complete training. We'll do financial literacy. We'll do homeowner education. They're really heavily involved with constructing their own homes, so they're very involved in the process all throughout. We don't keep a waiting list of homeowners that are interested in our program. Once we are underway with construction on new homes, we'll hold an orientation in community centers. We'll advertise for our Oakland homes that we're going to be building. And ultimately, we have a committee made up of volunteers and board members that dedicate time to narrowing down these families based off of the qualifications that I've already kind of talked about. And they'll ultimately make a decision who is the best fit for our specific program. And so in this picture that you see, the dad and daughter that are here in this photo are actually going to be moving in to one of the homes that I am going to show you. So we are nearly finished with construction on 3 homes on Groveton Street in Alexandria. If anybody is familiar with this area, it is right close to Beacon Hill Mall. We've built many homes in this area. So luckily the neighborhood knows us pretty well. That'll be changing soon, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. These homes are identical to each other with the exception of siding color. They are at the end of a cul-de-sac, so they sit nicely at the end of the street, and that's been very convenient for hosting volunteers and doing all sorts of construction activities. Final inspections will begin next week, And we're going to be hosting a dedication ceremony for these homeowners actually on Saturday, October 14th. So if you can't attend in person, we are going to be live streaming this. Check out our social media pages. You can also sign up for a newsletter on our website so that you can get the live stream information for that. So in the slide that I'm showing you, these are the floor plans for the Groveton Street homes. They are 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom homes, slightly under 1,900 square feet. When we approach a new project, we are thinking of all of the ways to make sure that these homes will be affordable long-term for a family. Outside of keeping costs low in terms of their mortgage, our team makes an effort to lay out these homes in a way that can be flexible. We also thoughtfully select materials that will save our families money in regard to maintenance and operation costs. Where we are able to, due to grade mostly, we design our homes for first floor full livability. So this will include ramps from the driveways to the front porch, 0-step entries, wide hallways, doorways. We'll incorporate design choices such as lowering the wall kitchen cabinets just a little bit, additional dedicated outlets at the bottom of stairways and in the bathrooms for future chair lifts. We'll even lower closet shelving on the first floor. The principle here is that anything could happen to any of us, so we want to make sure that we can prepare our families in case that anything needs to change. We're also passionate about building efficient homes that will reduce our family's utility bills. We build to Earthcraft Building Standards, which is a green building program focusing on energy efficient products, low VOC materials in order to help with indoor air quality, but also to lessen the impact on the earth throughout the construction process. These homes are also going to have solar panels installed, which will help offset utility costs. So it's really important for us to install durable materials for our homeowners. The goal is to install as many products as possible that will need little to no maintenance and will survive wear and tear of a full active household. Examples on the interior would be an LVT flooring that has a very thick wear layer on it. We use solid surface countertops in the kitchens and bathrooms, things of that nature. We also have a really great partnership with Whirlpool where they donate or significantly discount most of the appliances that we install. They're brand new appliances and come with the same standard manufacturer's warranty. On the exterior of the homes, for the past about 10 years, we've been using James Hardie siding. Up until recently, they had a donation program, which has helped us out a lot. But since COVID, they have not restarted that program, at least to my knowledge. But there are a lot of new products that claim the same advantages. So over the years, we'll continue to look out for those types of products. So moving on to more features inside of the homes that we install for our families. We install all new Energy Star appliances. We install 100% LED lighting. We make sure we install all low consumption water fixtures. We'll also use building materials that supersede local building code. So what this usually looks like is higher insulation values, insulation where thermal barriers are beneficial to the home's performance, but not necessarily required by code. Our homes are also tightly built in order to eliminate unfiltered air from coming into the homes and conditioned air from leaking. So these homes will be fully electric. Natural gas is an option at the end of the street, but when it comes down to safety for our new homeowners, this is something that we try to stay away from. In order to offset these utility bills, these homes will have 8 solar panels each. These panels will produce power. It'll be sold to Dominion Power, and that credit will come back on their monthly statement. Oh, wait. I wanted to show you a little bit more. The image that I included here is the final performance testing from the last homes that we built. So the Groveton homes are actually going to be tested next week. So I don't have that data yet, but we'll soon. But we actually anticipate these homes performing a little bit better than the last. Each time we build, we learn better methods and also new materials come out. So we're excited to see how they do. That's what this little image is here. The last note that I'll talk about with our materials is the sustainability aspect. We try to build as many materials as possible that have been locally sourced or are made up of recycled content. We ourselves also plan ahead with construction as much as possible by manually performing takeoffs for our homes to get a closer count to actual building supplies needed. And we also try to use advanced framing whenever possible. So you can use a lot less lumber when you frame interior non-load bearing walls to 24 inches on center. You can install drywall using mid stud bay panels rather than having to end pieces on studs. Doing this, you can use so many more full sheets of drywall rather than having so much waste. So, saving this much times 3 houses really, really makes a difference. The image that you see here is the insulation that we install in our home wall cavities. The material is made up of actually recycled blue jeans. This is a code approved, code tested material that we receive at a 100% donation from an organization called Blue Jeans Go Green. Anyone can support this donation or this cause by donating jeans. If you go onto this website that's here on this link, you can print out a free mailing label to send your old jeans. They'll be recycled. There are also nationwide stores where you can do drop-offs. I think American Eagle is doing it right now, where if you donate your jeans, you can even get a coupon. So all of this to us is a win-win. We're able to build in a more sustainable manner, but saving this material, getting this stuff donated directly impacts the cost of these homes and the affordability for our families. So we as an organization have a wide variety of ways to volunteer with us. I'm most involved with construction volunteer program here. We host volunteers all through the week, led by a crew of our most dedicated volunteers. In addition to creating a really unique experience on our job site, they also help us majorly offset the cost of construction. Depending on the type of project that we have, we say maybe 60 to 70% of construction tasks we actually do with volunteers. This also gives us a really reliable source of labor. Over the past couple of years, skilled labor has been incredibly short, but we've been able to really keep our stride. We have some really great people involved in our job sites, and we really could not do what we do without them. So I mentioned on the last slide, obviously, that we do a lot of our volunteer or a lot of our labor with volunteer, but there are a lot of things that we don't get discounted at all. We still have to pay for plumbing, mechanical, roofing, site work, foundation work, things like that. And as many of you know, these things are very expensive, and that doesn't even include the cost of land acquisition, site development, permitting, things like that. So how do we pay for it? Off the job site, there are a few steady funding sources for available home ownership in our area. So we have to become creative in the ways that we fund our mission. So we're always looking for opportunities to develop site where we can build on discounted or donated land. We always try to maximize density on these sites in order to offset the land acquisition cost. Our affiliate has been very fortunate to have many corporate sponsors that send out their volunteers for build days in exchange for a small donation to our affiliate. We also work with faith groups, private individuals that contribute each year. Another way that we fund ourselves is we have 3 restores in our area. We have a location in Chantilly, Herndon, and Alexandria where we sell new and used goods, and all of those proceeds go directly towards our mission. The picture at the bottom here is the before picture of the site before we developed the properties. Let's see, I know I'm at 11 minutes, so I'm going to go fast. All right, so what you're looking at here is a quick breakdown of how we paid for the 3 homes on Groveton Street. Our mortgages are structured for our homeowners that they will not be more than 30% of their income. These homes are going to be sold for a maximum of $375. We're really looking at about $350 right now because we have been able to come in under our budget on these, which is really exciting. And so just a little shot of a cost breakdown on here on how we paid for it all. And then talking about what's next. Our next project right now lined up is the 10 townhouses, coincidentally on church property, like we were just talking about in the city of Fairfax. Fairfax Presbyterian Church will be a 10-unit permanently affordable townhome project in the city of Fairfax. The church is providing free site control via a 125-year ground lease structure. So that makes it very possible for us to do. Let's see, I think I'm running out of time. So I think I want to just go ahead and move to questions, but if anybody has any questions about our program, please feel free to reach out to us. Let's see, and my contact information is here on this next slide. Take a minute.
Thank you, Kelly. That was amazing. I'm so interested to learn all about the different green building technologies you're taking advantage of. So thank you so much. Do have a question in the chat. If Habitat DC Nova works on multifamily projects. So do you do that type of work, or is it strictly?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't in Northern Virginia for some time. I think our last project might have been Perry Hall, maybe about 10 years ago. In DC, they do a lot of townhouses, a lot of condominiums. They do a lot of 2-over-2s. We have often considered a lot of properties where we can get a lot of multifamily, more dense residential units, but it can be really competitive for land around here, which I think everybody really understands.
Yeah, thank you. And so just to clarify, when we're talking, I guess multifamily can have two meanings, I think maybe in this developer. Sometimes multifamily, we refer to building that's built for renters versus, you know, home ownership or for sale. But I think all habitat development is for sale. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's
Yeah,
all home
okay.
ownership.
Yep, all home ownership. Great.
Yeah.
And I know how hard and rare that is. I think the sales price is really truly amazing for anybody who has a better sense of the market for sure, is incredible. And I just saw a comment or question about getting copies of the slides. So yes, we can send that out with a copy of this recording of this session too, if that's helpful for our attendees. Any other questions for Kelly on the Habitat project in Groveton Street? Again, this is Groveton. It's Alexandria, but it's the Fairfax County part of Alexandria along the Route 1 corridor. One other question. Does Habitat partner with for-profit developers?
We do. We actually, through the Fairfax Presbyterian townhouses that we're going to be working with, we are partnering with Homemade, which is another nonprofit, but we are leveraging a lot of their really great resources with companies like Toll Brothers. We have had a lot of discussion with Van Meter in the past as well before. Van Meter is actually going to be doing a fundraiser for us in the next year. So we are always exploring those opportunities.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much again, Kelly. Really appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and move west now to Loudoun County, to the Sterling kind of Dulles Center area. And I'm very happy to welcome Ben Wheeler of Wellington Development and Mitch Crispell of APA, Arlington Partnership for Affordable Housing. So thank you both for joining us to talk about this joint development senior project in Loudoun.
All right.
Thanks.
Well,
Could you guys take down the
Mitch is getting
slides
the
that are up
slide.
that we can share?
Yeah, as Jill said, I'm Ben Miller with Wellington Development, and Mitch and I are going to kind of tag team this presentation. So Loudoun View, I'll give you just a big background. Loudoun View is located in Sterling, Virginia. It is a 98 unit, all senior, 100% affordable project. It is part of a larger master plan community, about a 25-acre site that sits next to the Costco in Sterling, behind the Harris Teeter, and the Target, if people are familiar with that area. NVR has developed the other land bays, a variety of market rate for sale and rental, for sale product. I'll go to the next slide, Mitch. So, as many of you know, if you've been in the affordable housing business, the for-profit nonprofit partnership is one that is encouraged and has a lot of benefits. We, Wellington and E&G, our predecessor, identified this tract of land. We were actually talking to the folks across the street, the land that Pulte owns, and they're doing their independent living site, their Del Webb site, on an 80-acre tract of land that the Corrado family was selling. We weren't successful in convincing Pulte to let us partner with them, but one of the Pulte guys said you should talk to the Michael Capretti, the master developer across the street. We did. We met in IHOP, had a coffee, and the rest is history. So when we knew we needed a nonprofit partner, and there are a lot of great nonprofits. You heard from David Wesley, APA. We had familiarity with them and had worked with them in the past, and so we brought them on board to be part of the partnership. As you can see, and Mitch is going to get into the financing a little bit, but we financed this as a hybrid, a 9-4, and both us and APA had a lot of experience in doing hybrid deals. Very successful in winning 9% at the state level, and probably most importantly, kind of a complementary skill set, and in terms of how we operate and what we're good at and what we weren't good at. And lastly, Loudon has grown so fast, and the Appas of the world, the Cornerstones, were looking to make a four-way into Loudon, and so this was an opportunity for Appa to plant their flag in Loudoun County. And so, and a little bit about Wellington, as I said, E&G, Jim Edmondson, who founded E&G back in the late 70s, and I founded Wellington. And so we kind of just, while technically an E&G deal, this was really a deal that Jim and I did. Wellington was technically a consultant, but all sort of the same players, just different names on letterhead. But as I said, affordable housing for 35 years, done about 10,000 units, primarily in the DC area. We've used the litany of financing tools, and Jim has a very prominent role in local advocacy. We do well by doing good, and we really are a for-profit with a nonprofit mindset. And so, which is another reason why we and APA sort of have meshed so well. And I will let Mitch speak a little bit about APA, and then we can get into the deal.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Mitch Crispell. I'm the Director of Real Estate Development here at the Arlington Partnership for Affordable Housing. We are a 34-year-old nonprofit developer that has, for most of our history, been just in Arlington, but now we're in 5 jurisdictions in the area, and we've got 2,600 rental apartments that we own and operate. And we've got a strategic plan to get to 7,500 apartments in the next 5 years. So we're growing like crazy, and we're really excited and proud of the work we've done. And we try to target across our portfolio, about 10% of all units being permanent supportive housing for formerly homeless or other special needs populations. That's a commitment we've made. And then another commitment we've really made is our resident services programming, which I'll talk more about at this project in a minute.
So here's a picture of our building, and a little bit I probably should have touched on at the beginning, but Loudoun County has an affordable housing requirement for their developments, and it's a percentage of the total units developed in an entire site. And the master developer Michael Capretti, who is a big believer in affordable housing, a longtime developer in the Virginia area, had taken this through rezoning, knew he wanted to do affordable housing. By the requirement, he would have had to do about 15 or so ADUs. Partnering with us in APA, we were able to deliver 98 units to the county, so substantially more than the county would have gotten. And so I want to stress, and we've used this model with, and I know APA has as well, with other developers within certainly Loudoun County. And getting master developers and the builders like Toll Brothers and Lennar and Van Meter to understand that we working together can produce a lot more affordable housing than sort of what is required. It took a little bit of, those of us who have been in the affordable housing business for a while, there's still that stigma that you're putting all those people in one building. But I think we're past those days, and we've been successful in convincing the county staffs and the county politicians that for financing reasons and a whole host of reasons, it makes sense to do things in certain buildings. And the facts of the matter is that as long as the building is integrated, and you'll see a picture of the whole community, as long as the building is part of the entire community, it really doesn't matter if it's one building or they're spread out, right? And that's the key. And as you can see, and Jill alluded to it in the beginning, our product is indistinguishable from market rate stuff. And when I take finance folks and other people tour, the first thing they say when they walk in the lobby is, "This is affordable housing." And so, the county has requirements, and Virginia Housing has requirements to build quality stuff. So you can see this was done. The pool was done by the master developer. We are part of the HOA, so our residents get to use all the amenities. The building on the right is an NVR condo building. And so as you can see, we're part of this entire community, and there will be units sort of behind us as you're looking at the picture. But one of the nice things about partnering with master developers, the amenities, we didn't have to build a pool. We get the benefit of it, but it helps keep our costs down by having the master developer build the trails and the tot lots and the swimming pools. We do have, interior amenities, fitness areas and things like that, as you can see. One of the things we provide is Wi-Fi for all our residents, not just in common areas. So all of our residents have access. We, as Jill knows, bridging the technological divide is a huge emphasis, and we believe in it. And so we provide at owner's cost and not cheaply, but we provide Wi-Fi for everyone. And it's not the common Wi-Fi that you get walking into a Starbucks. Each resident has his or own private Wi-Fi that they log into. It's not as if everyone's part of a group Wi-Fi. Our common areas, including this outdoor terrace you see, is Wi-Fi enabled. Fitness room. We have ample community rooms on multiple levels. This is a 4-story building. Because it's 62 and over, the parking requirement is less than what Dave had to do at his project. And this is all surface parked, fortunately. Otherwise it would have been a much more expensive development. And as you can see, the finishes, I love this picture just because you got a grandmother sitting with her granddaughter. But as you can see, the finishes are really no different than a market rate deal. One of and not to get too arcane unless people want to get into it, but we have 2 elevators because technically the way this deal is financed, and Mitch will get into the specifics of the financing, it's technically 2 buildings, a 9 and a 4, although it's for everybody looking at it and structurally it's 1 building. There's essentially an invisible condo line going down the middle of that separates the wings. Here's our unit mix. 10% of the 10 of the units are at 30%. When we originally planned this, we had a lot less 50% units, but we were able to attract or get additional financing, which allowed us to do a lot more lower income units. So we were able to give the county more 50% units than we originally planned, which made them very happy. Because it's a senior deal, it's all 1 and 2 bedroom units. And as you can see, there's the mix. At the bottom, we do have 10 units that are permanent supportive housing units. Those are folks that are formerly homeless or physically or mentally disabled. They tend to come with their own rent vouchers and some of their case management services, but certainly it's and Mitchell's going to get it more into the services, but that along with universal design are important components of our projects. Like Dave's deal, we're 100% universal design. And that was important not only for us, but also the county. Chair Randall especially wants people to be able to sort of age in place, and to the extent that folks need units that become accessible, we do that. We do have ADA accessible and hearing and visually impaired units as well. And as for those of you who understand universal design kind of is an a la carte, almost like a Chinese menu. You sort of get to pick the components of there's some mandated ones, and then you get to pick, and these are the ones that we added in the building. So I'm going to turn it over now to Mitch to talk a little bit about the financing.
Great, thanks. I know we're getting a little over time, so we'll be quick with these last 2 sections. So as you see, all these projects have a lot of different funding sources. So, and Ben alluded to the fact that this is a hybrid with 9% and 4% tax credits. So here we've kind of lumped them together, but for each of these sources, it's actually 2 different sets of documents, 2 loans going to 2 different ownership entities that truly own different pieces of collateral in the building. It's cut into with an invisible line. So we have our first position debt is from Virginia Housing. We've got the equity here from Truist Bank. Then the county put in $5 million toward the project, which was a huge investment from the county. And then we got 2 other subordinate loan sources from the Northern Virginia Regional Commission that came during construction to help us with some overages we had while we were under construction. And then the state has a housing trust fund product that we were able to win 2 different awards on here. And then overall, 300,000 a unit for construction, all in, is a pretty good number for these projects. And that really goes to the master plan background that Ben talked about, the surface parking, the stick built. Those are all the features that get it to that number. So we're really proud that we could leverage every dollar from the county. We could raise 5 additional dollars from other sources. So this is an example of why it's so important for localities to be investing in affordable housing, because there's a multiplier effect. To build this big building of 98 units, we got 5 times the amount of money from other people than we did from the county. So their money goes a long way.
And just
Those
real
are
quick,
the,
Mitch,
fundraising partners.
just the county is actually a loan. I know there are some people that think it's actually a cash flow note. It's not a grant.
Thank you. So like I mentioned, we're really proud of the services we provide. So at APA, we have just over 50 staff members, and I think almost 20 of them now are on our services team. It's the largest team here at APA. And we have someone, she's fantastic. Her name's Kelly. She's full-time at the project, organizing all of these kind of events to engage residents, to provide them services, to help them take the housing we're providing as a foundation and then, jump from there. Here's a overview of some of the programs we offer. I love, she always says, like, they have this little pantry where people can come and get supplies. And then once they're there picking up their supplies, it's, oh, do you want to borrow the blood pressure monitor? Have you signed up for this Medicaid service? Do you need any help setting up an account online? And then it just goes from there, and we're able to really help people fulfill their needs. And we do this all in partnership with these groups and many more in order to bring services that are already in the community right into the building so people can access them. For example, when we bring medical and dental services in, all the slots fill right up. Everybody wants to take advantage of it. Because wouldn't you love it if your doctor came right to your house? And then we've learned a lot along the way. I'll just skip over that and we'll take your questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ben and Mitch. I really appreciate the great overview and really the focus on the financing, which I think was a piece that this audience was really interested in. And thank you, Mitch and Ben, for highlighting the real need for support from our local governments to invest in these properties and how far that can be leveraged. And the note too, that these often are mostly in the form of loans. So they're almost like revolving loans. As the money's getting paid back into a trust fund, the locality is able to lend it back out for future projects. So it kind of is a really excellent use of local taxpayer resources, developer contributions, and some other other sources that fund that affordable housing trust fund in our localities. So I'm not sure if there are any questions for Mitch and Ben on this particular project. Thank you, Hannah, for posting some other links. If you want more information on each of them, you can go ahead and click those links. One question I had is that I'm not aware is, how did you land on making this a senior project? And when you say senior, what is the age restriction on that? And yeah, if you can give any background on how that was.
Yeah, some of it was probably more art than science. It really was a function more of trying to provide, well, there's clearly a need for both in the county and all the counties, but we were trying to maximize the unit numbers, the total units, and we didn't have any flexibility with the size of the parcel. And so seniors yield the most because you're using 1 and 2 bedrooms and the parking requirements are less. And so that in this particular is how we arrived at that deal, or that choice of tenant base.
That's great. Yeah. And a follow-up question from the chat is, do you feel like these senior housing projects are easier than a project for families, working class, maybe 30 to 60% AMI? And how can more projects for working class families be achieved?
Yeah, I mean, and I'll talk and then maybe I don't know. Yeah, it depends on how, and he put easier in quotes, right? Because it depends. It depends certainly on what the jurisdiction wants. And again, it's certainly more art than science, because some of it is, you got to convince the local supervisor to buy in. And so what he and she wants is sort of paramount, but it's certainly easier from a standpoint. As I said, it's less parking and smaller units. So from a total cost, they tend to be cheaper and you can put more units in. But it's not necessarily, I think Mitch can speak to, I would think that it's a whole host of challenges on the services end. And certainly it presents operating. I wouldn't say it's any easier to operate. But I think, I don't know if it's easier. It's different, if that answers the question. As I said,
yeah, and
Go ahead, Mitch.
And the way we can achieve more projects for families is by getting jurisdictions to change their parking minimums. Because as Ben is saying, part of what drives project selection is something as silly as an overly burdensome parking requirement that forces you to shift down, if they require more parking spaces for a 3-bedroom unit, for example, than a 2 or a 1, then you're incentivized to provide 1 and 2-bedroom units and then make it a senior project so that you can fit as many units as possible and the parking required, the surface parking. Whereas if you had lower parking minimums, you could provide those larger unit sizes for families. And we wouldn't do that if it was a location that didn't make sense for a lower parking minimum, right? Like we're also have to market and own these ourselves. So we're not going to choose a parking minimum that isn't going to work. So that's something you can go advocate for.
Great point. And Fairfax County is currently I think the Board of Supervisors is going to be voting on their parking reimagined site, and we'll publicize that in our newsletter. But yeah, very important, especially in communities that have great public transit. And I know there's been a lot of research and documentation that have done about just parking needs being different for affordable communities because
And I will, Joe, and one other thing we didn't mention, because we actually, I want to stress the partnership that we in APA had with the county, because we really view that as collaborative. One of the other things that we had on this was we had about $125,000 of permit fees waived or a credit. And that was sort of unique to our deal. The county has since memorialized that. So now all affordable housing projects get up to $100,000 of county permits credited back, which again, as everyone on this call, every little bit helps. And so that, having counties and with the political will to do things like that makes a big difference.
That's great. Okay, one more question and then we'll wrap up. We understand if you have to drop off. It might be easier to get government approval for senior housing because a lot of jurisdictions will talk about the effect on school systems for projects with families, and yet, as indicated, senior housing operational costs can be daunting. So that's a great comment from Bill Fogarty, who is a long-term affordable housing advocate and attorney working on this space. So
and Bill touched on that, and that's the other one is that you hear a lot about schools, and that I was just at a community meeting Thursday night, and 100 residents, and they were all talking about traffic and the impact on schools. And so, yeah, that certainly with seniors, you avoid that, but there are other challenges as well.
yeah,
And there's a great need for family housing, and particularly in Loudoun.
that's for sure. That is for sure. So I'd like to thank all of our panelists, our bus stop tours. Thank you so much for sharing your amazing projects with us. It was really a fantastic overview. We really appreciate that. I do want to put in a plug for our next Lunch and Learn, which is going to be September 15th. We're kind of continuing along the theme of demystifying affordable housing and what it is in your communities. And we're going to invite our partners, HAND, the Housing Association of Nonprofit Developers, to come talk about their housing indicator tool and the work they've done to kind of highlight the faces of affordable housing and who are the residents working and living in your communities right now who are moving into these units. So I think that'll be another great session. We invite you to sign up for that. Hannah put that in the chat. Again, thank you to you all. We'd love to hear your feedback. We'll continue to showcase these wonderful developments. We have a lot of projects in the pipeline in Northern Virginia, and really just appreciate all the hard work of our development communities and of course the partners that make this all happen. So have a great day, everyone. Thank you.